America's influence around the world is fast diminishing. When I talk about America, I don't mean like the American people. I've got nothing against Americans in general. I mean, there are obviously some bigots, there's some idiots out there, some lowly educated people, but you get that everywhere. You know, a lot of people in America, for instance, they just have no idea of geography. They've got no idea where any nation is. They wouldn't. Half of them, most of them, wouldn't even be able to pick a country on a map. And I got thinking of why that is. I don't think it's necessarily education, because I started thinking in general, like many people, especially even in the UK, for instance, might not know where certain countries are. But I think for me personally, I think it comes down to sports. In the UK, Europe, and most of the world, we have an interest in soccer, football, and there's many nations around the world. It's a fair competition. And I think geographically, I think that's what it is. A lot of us have interest in like domestic teams and your national teams, and then you take an interest in where they're located, where they're from, regions, and all that, and it opens your mind to it all. It really does. And then you start really looking at other areas where maybe you're not really fluent on. And I think in America, their sports are so domesticated, and they're no interest. They really have a high opinion of themselves in general. So the point is, nothing else matters beyond our borders. Even their sports. They've just got no interest in the rest of the world with sports. And I think they just see the Olympics as a way just to show their superiority, you know? That's how it's portrayed, but that's really what's happening. So the vice president of the American vice president made a speech in Europe recently. I think it was yesterday or today. I can't remember, but I've seen a few videos on it. Trying to get it up now a little bit. I'm not going to go on too much. And I'm finding it a bit worrying how many people, some people are thinking it's absolutely great, you know, and it's like speaking facts. Sometimes the words coming out of someone's mouth can seem great, but what's their intentions behind it and what's their history? And it's like, wait a minute, it might seem, the words might seem great, but coming from that person, it doesn't say much. That's the problem. Um, yeah, I think too many people are so susceptible. They're so gullible at times, you know. And I find it
Of course, we know that.
quite worrying. It's like you've got they talk about free speech, they talk about democracy, and then you watch Trump, for instance, even in news conferences, he's selective of who he allows asks him questions. He shuts people down, and he's even banning some news outlets just because they won't call the Gulf of Mexico or Gulf of America. There's no freedom of speech. When you watch him in the presidential debates, I've seen so many of them over the years, and he always talks over people and things. He just has to be the center of attention for everything. And then you see people marginalized and a lack of democracy in America, you know, in its fundamentals. There's so much corruption, it's unreal. And then you've got people like, you've got a vice president of America. Obviously, I mean, he's subservient to a very unhinged president in Trump, has the audacity to then travel over to Europe, do a security conference, and actually demean every European leader. So every leader of each country, apparently, I haven't seen all of it, where he calls out each country individually, and it's like the audacity of it is for me is absurd. You know, it coming from them, it's like what the hell, man. People have been fed up with America for a long time, and I don't think Americans, maybe they don't realize it. There's so much ignorance. When you get a country posturing above everybody else, like they're the high and mighty, then you better be pure as hell if you're going to do that. If you're going to act like you're supreme, you better have everything accountable for that. There's too much corruption. I, I don't have all the answers, but I have a sort of perception of things. If you look at America, for instance, their influence stems a lot of the time from the dollar. You look at currencies and things. So effectively, everyone's bound by America. So America can keep printing dollars. They can keep printing the money because it's internal to them. So they control a lot of the markets. Whereas the other countries, they're accountable for all their money, you know, if there's any deficits and things. Whereas America can get away with it because they can just keep printing more of their own shit, you know. And it's like if people weren't reliant on dollars as a currency for trade, then how powerful would America be? That's a question. I'm interested in that. I mean, I'm not into all economics and stuff, but even I can sort of see there might be an issue there. It's only because America's positioned itself as this dominant force. And then I see people talking about military forces, you know, because I said it before. As soon as Trump came into office, I said I can see Trump alienating the rest of the world. They'll be alienated, and the rest of the world will actually come together and unify in their own specific regions. And America will try to they try to exert their dominance, and they'll be left to themselves. And then a lot of people in America, of course, will say, "Oh, it's great because it's all about looking after ourselves." It's like, well, if you actually take away, like for instance, everyone was going about TikTok. TikTok unites people around the world, and now America's trying to dominate that and say, "Look, TikTok won't exist without us." TikTok exists fine without America. If you only had I mean, I'm sure a lot of Americans would prefer that, like just a TikTok-only America version that you can't communicate with anyone outside of the borders of America. Well, that's great because that's how America tends to exist anyway. Nothing matters, does it? That's what Trump's like. Nothing matters. You're nuts, mate. You are thick as shit. You're thick as shit, but you hide behind the facade. There's intelligence behind that hollow shell of a human brain. I find it frightening that someone like that can lead a country. It's crazy. And then you've got their puppet goes over to Europe and tries to dominate the leaders. I find mental. So anyway, I saw something about where they were saying about because they're trying to tell the Europe that you need to invest more in your military, which makes sense. I think Europe has been lax on that. I think there should be more funding internally. I hate wars. You know, wars are a pain in the arse, but you have to have some level of something just to send a message, really, that not to have invasions and things. And you shouldn't be relying on America. But the thing is, what America's not going to realize is, because everyone keeps thinking that America's this powerful powerhouse. America is. I've said it before in other videos. America it's part of a continent that's very isolated from the rest of the world. You know, you've got the Pacific Ocean, you've got the Atlantic Ocean. Either side, it's literally stuck. Whereas Europe connects to the Middle East and Asia, which by extension then connects to Africa. So as a continent, by land you can get across all these places. America has this vast ocean. The only way they can by landmass is, from my understanding, in the winter, wherever it is, you can go from Alaska and you actually can connect, I think, Siberia and Russia, but they're hardly friends with them. So America is reliant on obviously the sea and the air to connect to the rest of the world, aren't they? So you talk about America. I see people who don't think, though, and I can't be asked to engage in comments, to be honest. Yeah, countries benefit from America, for instance, having bases in their country, whether it's naval base, whether it's army base. Of course, you have access to their personnel, but also like the fighter jets and things. That's great. And that is helpful if ever was an invasion or a problem. If America decides to act, because America could just leave their base on standby and not even do anything, just like why everybody else is going chaos. You got to ask the question: why would America want to place their bases there? For the one hand, they have political influence. It gives them posture of strength. That's important, isn't it? Another side is intelligence. By being so close within those nations, they can gather an awful lot of intelligence on those countries if they ever need that. And obviously, you use that as the neighboring countries too. It's also very important for America strategically. Like I just said, they're a million miles away from everywhere. So if they want to invade, let's say they want to invade Iraq or somewhere, well, they've got personnel based in Germany and all these other countries in Europe that is a lot closer to Iraq than America is. So it stands to reason they're going to want bases in strategic places where if they want to act, they can at short notice. It's going to be very hard to act from short notice when you're this continent that is so isolated. You've only got to look at like Pearl Harbor with Japan and things. When they invaded, America was very vulnerable then. They're trying to... So America likes to pretend like everybody else is benefiting off of them and they don't gain anything, so they don't know why they're doing it. But you call people's bluff enough and you'll find that America gets isolated and other regions become strong and prominent. And there's always states that are looking to take advantage of that. Just look at China. China's now trying to pretend like they're the best partner for everyone. You know, and compared to America at the moment, they're starting to look good, aren't they? And I think that's the crazy thing. Now, no nation's perfect, but when you get one that tries to stand up against everybody, and point out everybody else's flaws without internally reflecting upon their own. I just think, who the hell are you to make that statement? And how rude is it to go to someone's doorstep and tell them that you are crap, you're crap, you're crap, you're crap. And then to undermine them even further, you have meetings, like America is having meetings with Russia about the situation in Ukraine, and Ukraine are not even privy to these peace talks. How could the country being invaded and going through this military situation, the war, how can they not be involved in any peace talks? It's like America saying we're going to speak for Ukraine, we're going to deal with this. No, Ukraine hasn't said they will. And America, not being funny, but either America wants to be involved in Europe or they don't want to be involved in Europe. They need to make their mind up. You can't pick and choose as to when it's suitable. Again, America is nowhere near Ukraine. It needs military bases and it needs these alliances to have any sort of influence on the ground. So if all the countries of Europe, for instance, just shut their borders to America and said, right, take your military shit, get out of here, and you have no access to our airspace or anything. And America could say, oh, we're going to invade anyway. We'll invade you. Europe's big, people start acting like these countries and areas are weak. It's ridiculous. If you combine, because you start combining the militaries and the power they have, it's like there's no weakness there. It's not. You put France, you put Germany, you put the UK, even just them with whatever assets they have, that's going to be strong on its own. I'm not saying they're bigger and stronger than America, but you just don't know. And then you make alliances. It's like you can't just act like the bully. So it's a bit like where Trump was talking about taking Greenland, which is part of Denmark. So Denmark is part of Europe. So if Denmark calls upon its allies, America now has more than just little Denmark on its hands to deal with. And it's like, why go down that path? It's like, it's unreal, isn't it? But I said this before. The problem with America is their democracy is a shambles. It's not even a democracy. It's an absolute mess. It's chaotic because every term as a president comes in every 4 years. Sometimes they might get an extended period. It's very rare. So they usually get 4 years and then someone else comes in. But they're all egomaniacs. So anything that was getting built and created, or any alliances and agreements and trade that is put in place, it gets dismantled. And it just says, right, don't agree with any of this. I'm going to implement my own ideas now. So everybody that deals with America has to deal with someone that's got a bit bipolar. Every 4 years, we're going to get a crazy situation where all the agreements are cancelled. This gets cancelled. How could you build? There's no infrastructure. There's no structure in evolution. So I think America's chaotic in that sense. It's like the president is almost a king. There's too much power for one individual. It doesn't make sense. We're seeing it now with these federal courts and things where Trump's really pushing it at the boundaries as to what he can get away with. So what he's trying to do is actually I can see through this shit. He's trying to change the entire infrastructure of America. So when his term as president is finished, the chaos he causes, he will not be held accountable because he would have new judges in place, new ways of this infrastructure operating. Because last time he tried this shit, he got held accountable after he left his position. All of a sudden, you're not president anymore. We're going to start doing some investigations into you. He's going to try and make sure that none of that can happen this time. He ain't stupid in that sense, when these manipulators know how to deal with that manipulation. And anyone that crossed him the first time, he's going to have a vendetta against this time. And because no one can tame Putin, for instance, I think that's his big thing. He just wants to be able to say, look, I can control this guy. I can control this guy. We can deal with him. That's all he cares about. He doesn't really care about the fallout of anything. And like I say, you've got a lot of Americans that just cheer him on and just say, this is great. And it's like, if you actually reflect upon your country, it's a bit of a mess. Now, I'm not saying all the countries are a mess, and every country has its issue. But I think, to be honest, the values and the way of life within Europe, European nations, and of course, UK isn't part of the EU anymore, but it's still a European country of the continent of Europe. I think we have very similar ideals. Like, for instance, universal healthcare, social benefits, all these sort of things. It's universal across Europe. Everybody has a very similar model. And I think that's great. In America, they just do things different because it's all about having really, really rich people, and everybody else is subservient. Everybody else has to suffer. They get breadcrumbs. They don't have access to a lot of these things, but they're told this is normal. And it's like the rest of the world looks on and goes, what you live like that? That's crazy. And then you get their leaders come to try to freaking influence the rest of the world. It's like, no, just stay over there if you're going to behave like lunatics. You can't act like an actual leader. So yeah, I see a lot of this shit, and I just think idiots. And then I see comments where someone's like, "Yeah, I wish this guy would represent UK." The problem is, even in the UK, there's some thick idiots um, who really don't understand much, or they're just susceptible to manipulation. And you get it anywhere. There's always going to be someone that cheers on an idiot and says, "That's great." Someone's put, "Are you listening? Worst prime minister in the UK." The trouble with politics is you can't win either way. I don't particularly favour the current prime minister in the UK, but sometimes you just got to let things get on and have some growth. Can't keep cancelling everything. And I think that's where America's biggest problem is. You get egomaniacs as presidents. They get 4 years of too much power. Um, and they go crazy. And of course, everybody else underneath them just wants to have that position too. They want to feel powerful, and they want to get promotions. So you see it now. It's like I can't help but think what their lives are going to be like after. That's the thing. You make yourself look like an idiot for 4 years. Like, look at this press officer at the moment, the one that's in America. That I've seen her a few times, and I'm like, what's she going to do? Like when Trump's presidency comes to an end, what does she think she's going to do for a career? Because no one's going to want to hire her. Why would you want to deal with that? She's got so much arrogance and stuff. This guy here looks like I swear he's wearing mascara. I'll put him on now. You hear a little bit. You might like what he's saying, but again, it's coming from a troll, though. That's the trouble. How can we listen to this shit? It doesn't matter. If I don't want to say too much negativity, to be honest, but even great sound bites, if a great soundbite comes out of, I don't know what the word, what would compare it to. I was going to say a piece of shit, but it's probably a bit wrong. But anyway, yeah, it's still shit, isn't it? A pig. Let's say it's a pig. If a pig, if a pig's able to talk, and maybe it's spewed a few good words, it's still a pig. This guy. Let me see. I bet my sound's gone again. My headphones keep playing up. Let me see if I can switch to C. There we go. I swear he's got mascara on.
You cannot win a Democratic mandate by censoring your opponents or putting them in jail.
They're always trying to censor people, America. Look, I just said that. Trump's just done that at the bloody thing. He won't even let people ask questions if he doesn't like the question. He acts dumb and then tries to say no, no, no. And apparently, I've read somewhere that when them executive orders he keeps signing, apparently he didn't know what some of them were. So he said, no, that means we're investigating that. We're going to check to see if there's anything we can do. And then someone said, no, that's actually cancelled all funding. We actually have lost access to this. And he goes, no, that's not what I said. It's like, yes, that is because they lost funding. He actually hasn't got a clue, that guy.
Whether that's the leader of the opposition, a humble Christian praying in her own home, or a journalist trying to report the news.
He did. I don't think they fact check. This is the trouble. Like sound bites. He said something about in the UK there's no freedom of speech. You get locked up. You get put in jail for speaking up and things. And then he used an example of an abortion clinic. Someone was outside an abortion clinic and they were praying. To think, okay, there's nothing wrong with that. Why would there be anything wrong with that? And then the police come and ask him what he's there for, and he says he's praying for the child he lost. You think, okay, that's fair, Of course, depends how close to the clinic you're doing it. It's really really I wouldn't say unnecessary, but do you know what I mean? Like you could do that at home. You don't have to do it in the face of people that are vulnerable and make them feel even worse for a decision they're making. Do you know what I mean? Like, so are you trying to inflame a situation? That's what you would argue. Like, you could argue, someone's just praying. It's like, yeah, but where are you praying? Can't you go to a churchyard and do that? Why have you got to do it where you've got to make people feel like shit? So anyway, he's trying to make it sound like they just arrested this guy and all he was doing was praying. And it's like, And then you read, I am not aware of all the facts, but I started reading the comments, and apparently it's been in the news before. I wasn't aware of it, but the guy had a restraining order in the first place. So he was breaching a restraining order, and that's why he got arrested. But this guy isn't doing any of that fact-checking, is he? He just wants to fit a narrative, and that's the problem with these politicians. And I don't trust American politicians as far as you can throw them. If you look at it, like, apart from the odd one that really speaks their mind, how many of them truly implement change? or even try to. How many of them actually try to? For the average person, it's not. It never is. It's all about money and power, how they can get a promotion, influence, and all this. It's never to help people. It's never to help people. Like, I haven't looked into this guy, but I bet if I started digging deep into him and started to look at where he come from, his politics and things, I bet there's a load of shit that followed him. You know, especially to be linked and aligned with Trump. He ain't going to pick people that challenge him, is he? Or people that have good intentions. You've got to toe the line, follow his agenda, follow his narrative. I don't think that's going to be particularly intelligent, bright people with actually good morals. So who the hell is this guy? You know, it's crazy to me. And he doesn't even present as someone that, in all honesty, I get bad vibe immediately. I just feel like criminal, in all honesty. And it seems like I'm listening to a criminal on a world stage, talking to leaders, telling them they're crap. And it's like, you don't look very statesman like.
Or can you win one by disregarding your basic electorate on questions like who gets to be a part of our shared society? And of all the pressing challenges that the nations represented here face, I believe there is nothing more urgent than mass migration.
Can't bother listen to him. I think he's an idiot. But a lot of people are going, yeah, and he's going to be the next president. It's like, goddamn, America, terrible. If these are the people that are going to be running that country, it's like, you might as well get out now. And I'm seeing a lot of Americans trying to flee right now. So it's not all Americans are gullible. It's like a lot of people are fed up. There'll be a lot of people here waffling on about the UK, but no, the UK ain't that bad. You know, there's issues, of course, you know, but it's like there's issues in any country. But no, it's worse over there.